All right. So, welcome to the Ask Dr. Dream Show, where we uncover the beauty of our dreams to reveal the truth of who we are. And if you're watching on video, say hello to my little Lola and to my special friend Genevieve Beg.
That's right, Genevieve Beg.
Genevieve Beg. So things will be a little bit different on the show right now. I've got Genevieve with me in studio, which means in-house in my office, and we're close and personal during this time that most everything is virtual. So it's nice to have some virtual, but some in person. And normally I start with a little prayer. Do you mind if I do a little teeny one?
Do.
Okay. This will be very short and sweet, I promise. So let's just take a breath. And just release and let go of everything that has come before this moment, everything that we think we are, everything we think we're doing, our agenda, our attachments, our egos, our identities, all the good stuff, all the funky stuff. Just for a moment, let's set it all aside as we become willing to be a blank slate, a blank canvas, a wide open experience for God, Goddess, the universe, the love intelligence that governs the universe to have its way through and as us. So with this in mind, I'm just so grateful for this opportunity to be here in this moment, to be here with Genevieve, to be broadcasting on Unity Online Radio, to have Lola in my lap, and to have so many blessings just in my space. In spite of all the drama going on, there are some serious blessings to be acknowledged. And I'm grateful for the true blessing of getting to be in this space with you, Genevieve.
And so am I. So am I. It's been an incredible experience to be in-house, as you say, and to see you and Dana opening your house the way you did and so welcoming.
Oh, thank you. So to wrap the prayer up, and so it is, amen. Odd woman, odd dreams. And I think I want to just say this because this keeps coming up on my mind. Dana and I, we often have guests in our house, and I love everyone that comes. And there's always this, it's like that saying about treating your guests like they're angels. And sometimes people are more angelic than others, but you and Glenn have been like super angels. But I always feel like when the visit is over, I'm not the same. And already, even though the visit's not over, I feel like I'm being changed by having been around you. And I already know Glenn is a change agent, but it's such a gift to get to meet such a courageous and open and powerful, authentic being such as you. So thank you, Genevieve.
Thank you. Really, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Talking about transformation, I told you, I shared with you I think yesterday or the day before, I arrived here with quite some heavy heart, with quite some depression, some would call, some pain. There was pain. There was pain in my heart. There was pain all over me. Moving on your journey and coming from San Francisco to LA has been really stressful. Past the Golden Gate Bridge, that was an amazing experience. I was very stressed with the amount of people, the greatness of movement. There's so much movement, and so I arrived quite feeling wounded, feeling oppressed, and we had spent a couple of days with a friend, so this had a little bit, tempered this feeling of heaviness. Entering the house here with Dana and you was just, and we started strong, right? We started with your bi-weekly Ned talk.
Yes,
your little gathering.
Yes,
that is quite profound.
That was kind of perfect timing.
It was unbelievable how deep we started, and I've considered myself blessed enough that I hardly get lost into small talk with people. I have this privilege of having people coming and interacting on a deep level, pretty deep level. I thought I wanted it all my life, that I was the one initiating it. We discovered this about a year and a half ago, just doing carpooling with my daughter. Um, that's someone who picked us up and carried us for 100 kilometers or so, actually opened up in a way that was totally unannounced, and
Mm.
I had not at all stimulated or initiated the conversation. And someone told me about how he's been adopted, and all the very difficult thing with his family.
Mm.
And we had this reflection with my daughter Salome about how I end up always with people who talk on a deep level about their, and it doesn't have to be philosophical, but it's generally about their pain. And this man opened up in a way, and we left the car, and I told Salome I didn't ask anything this time, because she kept telling me, can you stop talking to people like we have like all the time? You can't.
Can we
How do
talk
you
about
get
the weather for
right?
God's
Right.
sakes? How about nail polish? How about that?
It was something along this line, and I think it was more for Salome. It was more also, um, how is it that in 20 minutes you get this information, this
Mm.
amount of information?
Mm.
And I was looking at her, we just spoken about this, and I looked at her, I didn't ask, and she said
It's
it's
just the space.
unbelievable. It's just yeah, I guess it's just the space. So that said,
It's
it
your
hardly
space,
it
your
hardly goes.
essence,
I
not
I
just
mean,
the space. Like it's you, it's what you bring because you walk in with this depth of
I'm
connection to your own soul. We feel it. I mean, I feel it.
Oh, I love that. So I love that you say with a connection to my own soul,
Mhm.
because I was seeing it like maybe there is a connection with other people, the willingness to get in touch with others.
Mhm.
And but I've been looking for that very connection with my own soul lately, and I've been willing to be a bit more. I've been validating a lot more this notion that conversation after conversation, people have told me, but it sounds selfish to just wanting to take care of yourself. But it's the time of my life where I do want to take care of myself first and foremost.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So I want to get back to that because I feel like that is the core piece, but I want to give people a little grounding, and maybe we should get a little closer to the microphone just in case. A little grounding about kind of where you were before. And I know let me just let people know there's a wonderful website and video that gives you kind of the foundation of this project and this process, this journey that Genevieve and her and Glenn are on. And it's at wakeinwave.com. So that's wake, like wake up, WAKE, in wave.com.
Correct.
Beautiful website, beautiful video. But for those who haven't seen that, just so that they can be a part of this conversation and get sort of caught up to where we are, can you give us a little bit of like who you were before you went on this journey and what this journey is symbolic of, and what's been happening with you that brings you to this moment?
So I'll take it back to 2019. I was working hard. I was living in Israel and working in an amazing social business, Juhas Guest House on the coastline. I was working in the only remaining Arab village on the coastline of Israel. And the business is a coexistence business. So we were Jews and Arabs working together to help this impoverished village and isolated village to develop and create a social change. So the last year in 2019, we were still working with the Middle East Partnership Initiative, a plan from the US Embassy, and we were trying to create social economic change in the community through women.
Wow, that's great.
And I, while it was my dream job, working with women, creating workshops for them, and interacting with women that were not used to this kind of interaction, to meet people outside of their village, getting out of their isolation. So for me, it was an amazing opportunity and a dream job, literally. But something was starting to happen, and I was feeling myself going down, being depressed, feelings of depression. um, I also lost during that year, and I saw a close friend leaving and going down, leaving to cancer. So a year of
Rohi?
yeah. It was a year of profound change and profound effect. I haven't been exposed to death so much before. And since I lived in Israel for 8 years, I've seen two of my closest people, closest friend that I considered closest friend that I love dearly, go, and both to cancer. The first one, my friend Esther, a few years before, and then Rory, and this woman had a great impact on my life. So seeing her going down, something started shifting. And when she passed away, I had to have a gastric surgery right the week after her passing away. And I think that's not a small detail.
Yeah, that's not small.
Because I believe that the anesthesia, it was not a very difficult surgery. I mean, it was not something life-threatening in any way. But I think the process of anesthesia, of going weakening my body being weakened, and I had talked to my body very, very much. I had asked my stomach, all my gastric system to be ready to help me, to support me, and it actually worked wonderfully on the physical level. I was walking a few hours after surgery, which was amazing. But something shifted. The weakening, I believe, of my system allowed me to completely express and let go of all of a bunch of traumas that were stuck in, and I went loose. So I called a friend who was a therapist, a movement therapist, and I began doing a work that I had begun working on a few years before, but just pushed away. I began to learn to feel.
So let me just back this up for 1 second. So it's interesting because the weakening of your body, your physical being, due to the surgery and due to the loss of these beloved friends, put you in this weakened state where you were actually able to feel like the stronger version of you was too much like bada bing, bada boom, go, 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 that there wasn't as much of a opportunity to feel the emotions that had been maybe stockpiled up.
I think it had to be buried for a while. Because that's the only thing I knew. So I'm sure there are people who manage to live and conduct their life with extreme pain around them, and manage to protect themselves emotionally. And I think I didn't know how to do that. So when I went down, I entered what I realized was already termed in the literature as the dark night of the soul. So I went into a dark night of the soul. I had incredible symptoms of depressions. It's really depression. But I started also experiencing, and all the while I was isolating myself way beyond what the COVID restrictions required.
So the COVID was kind of a convenient.
Very. That you're right to point at it. The COVID, this is where I do feel that things happen just as they should.
Yeah.
So the COVID situation really allowed me to say no to whatever I couldn't say no before. So the need for isolation, the need to face myself, the need for the self-introspection. I needed time. I needed to be able to listen to my own heart and my own voice, and I couldn't do this. I was too embedded in other people's life, in other people's problems, and I couldn't make time for myself. So this is the beginning of the journey. The profound depression, suicidal ideas, the whole shebang together. I was really, really, really down.
So I just want to acknowledge, I feel like a lot of people, a lot of women especially, but I'm sure a lot of men who are listening also, they're good people, they're helpful people, they're doing people, they're trying to make a difference people. And in that, there's this, it almost feels selfish to take care of yourself. So there's this danger of running out of steam. And it seems like, so the dark night of the soul is almost
Forced that,
forced you to
forced
have
me to be with
to
myself.
stop and be with. And so what was some of the stuff that you found that was buried there?
So I think it came in a lot of the traumas that I experienced as a child. I experienced a traumatic childhood. I was abused.
I'm so sorry about that.
And you know, there was a time I would say, yes, I understand, but I do have this feeling, and I don't want to expand that to other people, because I
Right.
wouldn't want to be disrespectful to anyone's story, and especially the moment of their story, because
Correct.
I did feel sorry for myself,
Yeah.
and I did need to feel sorry for myself. The pity party, even the word shouldn't be that
Right.
wrongly chosen, but I needed the moment of pity party. I needed the moment of being of feeling the state of victim that I was, because there is no question about it. A child who is abused is a victim. A person who is abused in any way is a victim. But this state of victimhood is also could also, in my case, be transformed into a place of healing. The being a victim, the process of getting out of victimhood was a chance to make this crisis meaningful. And when you can give the crisis meaning, when you can do that, you grow way beyond what was before, right?
That's kind of what my whole path is about these days. It's like that exact thing, but it seems like there's a lot to give up. There's a lot. It's not as simple as it sounds, even though I think it's simple, maybe just not easy. But once you get on that path, it's like you can get some power back. You don't have to be
not even back, but even beyond what you had before.
Like,
and when I look at all the people that I admire, that I hold in high esteem, there is a story of pain somewhere, and it doesn't matter the context or the actual events. There is no one trauma is bigger because the physical hit was bigger. I mean, it can, but it doesn't have to be that way. The way the traumatic event is processed seems to be the key to how wounded the person might be.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. That I feel like we could just revel in that. I wish we will, on a parallel plane, we'll keep going for hours and hours and years and years. But so you're working with these women, you have this day job or this dream job that you love, and you hit this crisis moment with your health, and you discover this depression takes over, this dark night of the soul.
I accept it.
You accept it
because I had no choice.
You had no choice. Okay, so tell us what happens next.
So during this dark night of the soul, there were the whole year. Basically, the first lockdown in Israel was on March 10. So a few weeks before I began really going down. I abandoned the therapy I was in, and therefore I abandoned myself.
Abandoned the therapy.
Yeah.
Okay.
And later I realized that it's me abandoning myself. So this whole period from March of 2020 all the way to a solid October of 2020, I went through every stage of darkness. I was, like I said, I was suicidal. I was trying to find comfort in any way, but the pain was constant. I woke up and cried, and I basically went to bed exhausted from crying, from dwelling in the pain that I did not know how to get out of it. But it was punctuated with incredible episodes. So When I was going very, very down, I was privileged enough to a few hours later, when I was starting to get better, to feel better, I was privileged enough to have this boom revelation, realization,
Mm.
how this was connected to an episode of to a traumatic event that I had suffered in my childhood, and when this event that I had forgotten, some of them for years,
Mm.
and who came back to my mind. And when I was writing down what I was thinking, I realized that the event of the previous day or the previous night was actually an incredible
Mm.
analogy
Mhm.
of what needed to be healed. But the day before, I wanted to die, and at that moment I was like, wow, this is amazing, this is incredible.
Wow.
This was helped by blissful moments, and one of them, I know it interests everyone, but one
Yeah.
of them was what I found out later is called a spontaneous energy orgasm. And I experienced 5 days out of the blue. It started out of the blue. I experienced 5 days of orgasm. There was nothing
Wow.
that I could do. I was with no one inside because I was isolating myself to the maximum, and I was not doing anything to pleasure myself. But I was just becoming a river of pleasure, and it happened instantly. It went crescendo,
Mhm.
like in a matter of just, I say, 10-20 minutes. I'm not sure, but I started to feel at first like, oh, what was that? And a
Whoa.
great feeling of pleasure, and then it clearly became orgasmic pleasure. I cannot describe it better than to say it was like being a river of pleasure.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
Great. But after 3 hours,
Uh-huh.
I started wondering, okay, well, can people see that? Can
Uh-huh.
I go to the grocery store?
Uh-huh. I might
And is there
starve to
like,
death.
how do I stop this? It was unbelievable. It was orgasms of different organs. So I had like a stomach orgasm, heart orgasm, sometimes all at the same time. It's difficult to explain. There was a notion of sexual pleasure. However, it it was not like, yeah, I can't it's hard to explain. There was a notion of sexual pleasure. It's similar to it in intensity, but it came from different parts and organs in my body.
Seems like this is like what the tantra teachers teach, and what like the great human potential. It's almost like if we learn to stabilize our bliss and embrace our darkness, and then there's the potential payoff reward that our life could be
That for sure was a
more
payoff.
full of bliss and pleasure. Like,
Right.
what if that is an indicator of the next frontier? Like, what if that could become stabilized and could become the way of it? Like, it's something to look forward to. Like, if we do our work, it's not for naught. There's an equal and opposite energy waiting for us on the other side. So it almost, in a dream, if there's an orgasmic dream, my interpretation is it's a reward. It's like whenever there's some kind of a lottery winning, or you're flying, or making love, or having this great release sexually or otherwise, it's kind of like the universe saying you're on track, stick with whatever you're doing, like keep going, like hang in there. So that's
This felt exactly this way,
mm,
and I think I was at the edge. I was really reaching a threshold of just, I was looking for dying. I was looking to die, and my body was not even hardly allowing me to move. I was drained of all my energy. I would spend hours after hour after hour in a hammock outside or in my bed, and all I was doing was cleaning my house and sitting in and moving from the couch to the hammock outside to my bed.
but you also told me something that preceded this 5-day orgasm, to just call it that in a nutshell. There was something in the acceptance, and you mentioned that just now, but I feel like that's a huge piece, because mostly when there's depression or heaviness or darkness, the first response is, ooh, let me run, let me distract myself, let me get rid of this. I even remember in the 1994 earthquake, I remember running around my house trying to keep everything from falling down. It's kind of an instinct to keep
Right.
everything from, like, keep everything status quo until it becomes so big. Then you just wave the white flag and say, all right,
Yes,
let
so
it
that's
rip.
exactly what it is. That's exactly what it is. And I think it's I'm no different than so many people I've heard stories from. It's like you have this moment where you can't take the pain anymore, and you're like, whatever, whatever, and you don't. I didn't even have the strength or the courage to end my life, and it was like whatever. And this is when this is exactly one of these moments when the orgasmic event took place.
It's almost like the worst thing is to admit defeat. And that may be the very thing that we need to admit before we can have that crescendo or that break in and moving. And just like in the hero's journey, the moment you surrender to the belly of the whale, it spits you out.
Right.
So we're going to be right back in just a few moments. Don't go anywhere, because we're going to talk about this amazing journey that Genevieve has been propelled on. And we're going to hear a little bit about her traveling companion, my friend Glenn. And we'll be right back on the Ask Dr. Dream show here on Unity Online Radio. And we're back on the Ask Dr. Dream show, and I'm Dr. Dream, Kelly Sullivan Walden. So excited to be sitting here in the flesh with Genevieve Begg. And it's the website is wakeinwave.com. And this is a podcast that you're doing, as well as a film series that is beautiful. And it's like a travel around the United States so far, and you're going to be going into some other places, but it's gorgeous. And there's a crowdfunding if people want to participate and be a part of Genevieve and Glenn's epic journey and help support the editing costs and the equipment and all the traveling costs of making this beautiful program. So it's wake, as in wake up, in wave, like hello, I'm waving, and like the wave on the ocean.com. Okay, so when we left off before the last break, we were talking about you coming through this dark night of the soul, and then how does this connect the dots with you and Glenn? What happened?
So the way it connects the dot is that I realized that I needed to live my life as it was and go for myself. Nothing of who I was becoming. I had a sense of losing myself, of not knowing who I was, of even having been an imposter to others. As to who I was and how much I wanted to help. I felt that I had tried too hard to be a superwoman in order to build a life where I felt recognized and I felt heard. So I just needed to go away. Psilocybin helped me take this path. I had never taken any sort of drug. I had smoked marijuana when I was younger, but I had never taken any sort of drug. And I read a lot about the marvels of psychedelics in treating PTSD, post-traumatic syndrome, and I reading a lot. I tried psilocybin and the mushroom. The experience that I had with magic mushroom really reconnected me to life. It was a profoundly spiritual experience, and this is when I started to turn towards plants. Plants became in a few hours. Plants became central in my life, where I was never especially connected, to plants. I enjoyed nature to see, but I was not a camper. I liked my comfort, and so I decided that I needed to go, and I didn't know how I was going to do that, but I knew that this was my only options. This was that, or continuing to face wanting to die and end my life. So I thought about first, where could I go? India. And I've been in India once in my life. It was an amazing experience, but I wanted something where I can feel freer as a woman. and traveling alone, because
Mm.
that was the original plan. And South America became obvious. Plants and learning about healing
And
and
you speak
healing.
Spanish.
And I speak Spanish, so this would help. So I wanted to hear other people's stories. I was starting awakening in a different way. This time the selfishness was starting not to fade that much, but there was a new space in me coming up that wanted me to go back towards people. Not in great crowds, but I started selling what I could. And eventually I had one time I connected on Facebook. I saw an update from Glenn, whom I had met in 2016 in the village, in the Juras guest house where I was working. He came to do an art project, and he did an amazing art project with kids in the village, kids I was working with. We had a really good connection. But we eventually lost touch. And I saw an update saying that he had been off social media to take care of himself. And I think he can tell more about it. But I contacted him and asked how he was doing. And I told him my project of going to cross Central and South America. So on foot, walking, and I gave myself a year originally. And I told him I hardly have any money, but I'm going. I just need to go. And he told me, well, if you start with Mexico, I think any fancy company, then maybe I could join. I was not too fond of the idea at this point. I had just met, yes, and I just had made peace with, this is my journey, and I'm going for myself. Yes. And I need to meet whatever will come my way. But as months passed by, I started to not get cold feet, but get really scared. And I get more and more excited about a travel partner. On June 18th, we met in Yosemite, in Mariposa. First time after we met.
You've got these beautiful earrings that I'm looking at. If you're watching the video, they're turquoise with like a red. They kind of look like an Native American feathers, silver feathers. It's like a mandala medicine wheel kind of a thing. Right. It's gorgeous.
And it goes with the whole journey, I think, with many journeys, but it goes with mine right now. And so we met in Mariposa for a first meetup to reconnect after so many years. Zil was with him.
His dog Zil, which is a pointer, right?
Which is a pointer. Okay. Yeah. I'm not sure what that means.
He's Australian pointer. I think he's a hunting dog.
He's a hunting dog.
Yes.
He's mixed, but he's a hunting dog for sure.
And by the way, Glenn Taylor Shackley or Shackley, you can find him on Facebook if anybody wants to check him out and check out his videos and art and photographer, music. Oh my God, Renaissance man.
He's a multi-talented
genius.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Multi-talented
and
genius.
A cool dude.
And overall. A really great guy. And I couldn't dream of a more marvelous.
And he's like a MacGyver. Companion. Like he could, like there's a hole in something. I'll fix it. Here's a paper clip. Here's a feather. Here's a thing. We'll patch this. Like that's kind of cool.
I couldn't dream in many aspects, but I couldn't dream of a more incredible travel companion, journey companion. I will say it's more than traveling.
Special. Yeah.
He's very special.
Yeah.
He's very, very special. Yeah. And so we planned on meeting in San Jose about 10 days later.
California. Okay. There's a lot of San Jose's in this world.
The one in California, San Jose in California. And that's when I put my bag in his car, and I was really ashamed because I couldn't, the moment I knew we were going to travel in a car, I couldn't downsize anymore.
Well, I always loved this little trinket. Maybe I'll bring my rollers, my hair vacuum cleaner.
So he had one pair of shoes, 7 pair of underwear and 7 t-shirts, and everything was very, very concise, and he worked so hard on making the call better and more appropriate for the journey. And
Wow.
here I come with my enormous bag. So this has been a point of shame, and later a bit of a point of contention. But we're
But have
working
you
to
needed
this
some of
point.
the things that you packed? Has there been any moment where you're like,
Hell
I'm glad
no.
I packed that thing? No, hell
No,
no.
he made me. There are so many things. He makes me, box things and send them
Oh,
home to a friend of mine who is like a mom, Sherry. So I pack
Sherry.
everything and I send all my unused thing, even shoes that I just bought with her in Mariposa.
Oh,
Uh,
that's hard, but
but
that's smart.
yes, and so we have a day of we're not doing so well, and then I'm forced to say, okay, I don't miss them. But yeah, he's very practical, and he has this very practical side of him. So Glenn is the journey companion that I did not even dare dreaming of.
Wow.
And he's an accomplished artist. And so my plan during this journey was to run a podcast about awakening and about storytelling, how stories can actually change not only beings but also entire societies. The way the way tribes are actually telling stories to their children creates an involvement in and an attachment to nature that is for sure having an impact in the way they grow and treat nature in the end. And something I drink that there was this minister of environment in France who was asked, he was doing unbelievable, beautiful things for environment, and he was asked how did he do all this? How did he dare doing all this? And he said, I'm a farmer. I grew up in a farm. My parents are farmer, and and we could not live without earth. We could not survive without the dirt, and so I have this consciousness. But this has been developed because of the stories that was told to him as a child, and so
Interesting.
And so I figured that I could also probably, if not rewrite my story, at least write it differently and scratch off the victim part of me to transform it into a powerful mechanism, a caring vehicle to support my awakening.
I just think it's that so on my show recently, I did a whole series about a woman who went missing for 9 years. Her mother was looking for her for 9 years because she just wanted to go. So she did kind of a nomadic gypsy kind of a thing, but she didn't leave breadcrumbs behind and she didn't stay in touch.
Wow.
But I'm so connected because of this with the archetype of the person that just wants to wander, that wants to have experiences, that wants to live at the edge. And I feel a very strong kinship to that myself. And I think it's a very generous thing to do. And it's interesting, your name's Genevieve. I feel like you are very generous with your life, Genevieve, because it's like you get to take us along with you. If those of us can't pick up and just leave our lives, not everybody can do that at the moment. But for you to be able to share some of the insights and the ahas and the great stories that you're learning along the way, we can be more enriched. We don't have to necessarily go and do that thing. Not everybody's going to, but we can learn, and we can all, like society, can change from these stories. So I know you have a traveling companion, Mr. Glenn Taylor Shackley, and we'll bring him in for a moment to get a little bit. And I want to hear about some of these stories that you've experienced on the road. So let's go get Glenn. Okay, so we were able to wrangle Glenn Taylor Shackley, aka Glenn, or
poof, like magic,
like
just
magic.
Appearing.
Oh my God! So you didn't hear us before, but we were singing your praises. And so we won't do that in front of you. We'll just do that behind your back.
Okay, good. Because that would make me very awkward.
Besides the fact that Genevieve said you're the ultimate, more than a traveling companion, you're the dream companion on so many levels. And I know that to be true because I've traveled with you as well, and you're just like 1,000 genius beings all rolled into one. But that aside, let's talk about, so we just heard the she said, let's hear the he said about kind of how this journey came to be. And at some point I'd like to get at least a little bit of a story or two about what's happening on the journey. So how did you come to join Genevieve on this epic adventure you're on?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that she is an awesome travel companion as well. Couldn't ask for somebody better to poke me and make me learn things and support me and guide me and help move us both forward. But this is actually good because we have a lot of stories and we need to learn how to tell them very quickly.
Oh my God.
So long story short for me, I sold my house in Seattle area in April 2020 and bought a house in Puerto Rico. But in the meantime, there was 8 months where I was stuck in confinement of quarantine with the best of people in California.
Oh,
between selling the house and buying the new house in California with my best friend and his wife and my godson. And it was great, but you know how it gets getting stir crazy. And
especially when you're a traveling wanderer.
And so it had been a
global
while
being, I should say,
since I had been traveling or doing anything, I don't want to say meaningful, but just adventurous
on
or
the
anything.
edge.
Yes. And so I started envisioning this journey for myself, and it came in the forms of a road trip or maybe hiking. I thought about hiking the PCT from like Canada into Mexico. And so I started preparing my car for this journey of a road trip before a hiking trip. And then I found the house that I wanted to buy. So instantly I'm teleported to Puerto Rico and I'm in a new life and lifestyle. And I kind of had to let go of that part of the journey that I was envisioning. And then
there's
somewhere
a cool
in there,
video, by the way, of all the work that you did on the house in Puerto Rico. Is that on Facebook? Where can people find that?
I think it's on Facebook. I know it's on YouTube.
And what's your YouTube
actually,
channel?
it is on Facebook because that's how I ended up tagging her in that video, and she wrote and told me about the journey that she's on. And at the time it was like, oh, I might join you in Mexico when she's on her way through. And then it turned into, wait, I'm getting tired of working on this house. I need to take a break. And so it turned into a joint journey. And so then, and it's just been a whirlwind since then. So.
So we know that you met in Yosemite, and in some ways, I mean, you two have a lot in common, but in some ways you're kind of like, there's an old show called The Odd Couple, like doing different things, like having different ways of, like, that you bring all kinds of things that you've packed, and Glenn having a very organized minimalistic way. So in some ways you both are prompting each other to grow. And so what are a couple of the crazy things that have happened? I mean, give us like the overview of where you've been so far over the last 4 months of this nomadic gypsy-like journey.
So for me, it was it should have been a 12-hour trip from Puerto Rico to California. It turned into like a 36-hour with delays and pandemic and all of these things, getting me from Puerto Rico to California, where we ended up meeting up. And from there, we took off, headed east towards the only thing we knew was she had a kind of a connection in the Navajo Nation in Arizona. And so we headed out that way, and 12 states and 8,000 miles later, ended up back in California again and spent some time with my family. She got to know my sister and my dad
and your brother
and my brother
and your aunt
and my great aunt. And I'm getting to know my great aunt, and yeah, it's been pretty awesome.
Okay.
On the second day, we got out of gas.
Second day of the journey. Like,
second day, I had not camped properly camped in about 25 years. And we were camping. So second night we spent in the desert. The first night we spent in the mountains. The second one in the desert outside Bishop, California, and heading towards Arizona, towards the Navajo Nation. We ran out of gas right by Death Valley.
Yeah,
When
out of
it's
gas.
110 degrees outside.
Ran out of gas. Second day of traveling together. Like, hi, nice to meet you again. Okay, let's get in the car. You're Thelma. I'm Louise. Let's go. Yay!
Yes, that's what I kept
And
telling you.
then middle of Death Valley in the desert, 115 degrees, running out of gas. So that's just, hello, welcome to the journey. Like if you can get past that, then it's almost like
You can pass anything.
you could pass anything. And that is its own epic story. But what were you
Yeah,
going to say?
but well, that one in itself is kind of a good summary of the journey that we're on, because she might describe things on her end as being awkward. I'm usually, if it's awkward, I either make it more awkward to make it apparent, and then we get over it, or like for me, it wasn't awkward at all, but we're still getting used to each other. And
yeah,
and
I mean,
then,
it's such an intimate space to be in with somebody you barely know. It's like,
yeah,
I have to go to the bathroom.
Yeah, just think about
just
and
that by itself.
I've got cameras everywhere, and she let me know like a couple weeks into our journey, like, you should like let me know, because I went to go to the bathroom, and I'm realizing that because
there's a camera right behind.
I'm getting these time lapses overnight into the morning, and then she wakes up in the morning and she's like, I've got to go pee. Why is there a camera looking at me?
And I didn't know where. And he said, I'm so sorry. He said, yes. And from now on, I will let you know every evening where I set up the cameras, so you
where the blank space.
So I know how to avoid them.
Oh my God.
Yeah, but those are details that are not details. You know?
Right. Oh, that's hilarious. Okay. So you got through the Death Valley thing, and that's just one of the stops along the way. And I know the story. I got to hear it last night, and it's epic. What I love what you taught. Like the things that you learn on the road, especially when things fall apart, it's like the gold. It ends up being the gold. And you said something to Genevieve as you knew it was inevitable that you were going to run out of gas. What did you say? Because I want this is one of the things I want to tattoo in my brain.
Yeah. So, and that's, to me, that even that second day kind of sums up. We had one like 6-hour phone call between us before we engaged on this journey, and that was pretty much it. And we knew each other a couple weeks from Israel, but when we talked, and then it really solidified it when we were running out of gas, is for me, it's hard for me to speak to some people that I don't know about this, like this energy or this God presence or the universe.
So you can totally go there.
And for some people, that's like, as soon as they hear that, they're like, whoop, this person's not with reality.
Right.
But for me, it's such a way that I live every day and every moment. Is I just had a very kind of deep and honest conversation with her that, like, look, it's inevitable that we're going to run out of gas. We are in probably one of the worst places that we could run out of gas.
On the planet, right?
The noonday sun is coming up quickly.
On 115 degrees.
And I think, it ended up being about 115 degrees at like 1 p.m. or something like that. And at this point it was like 10 a.m., but it was still rising. And I wanted to have the discussion of like, one, I've tried running the car out of gas before and hadn't done it. And so I knew we could go as far as I've taken it before, beyond zero. But to me, every time that I've run out of gas, or you end up in the worst neighborhood, or you take a wrong turn, or you think you're lost, or these types of things present themselves, I have to take a few good breaths, root myself in the moment. And it's not even like a mantra or anything. It's me connecting with all of the unknown possibilities, but I'm only thinking about how great it's going to be when you get to that destination. And for us, that first talk was, we're inevitably going to run out of gas, and it's going to present itself in a few ways. Either I'm going to be hitchhiking and I'm going to leave them in the car with the last of the fumes for the AC for them, or we're going to go on together. And she picked to go on together. And I told her, like, if we both stay in this good energy of bringing in positivity, we're going to hit the right timing, the right people, the right places, and all of these things will align. And sure enough, it did. We ended up in this oasis with 4 of these like
Flamingos.
characters, these like 2 neighbors, and
Those
one of them
in the
sent,
middle of the desert.
yeah,
With a
and-
palm tree.
yeah,
Yeah. Palm tree, green grass in the middle
Like-
of this valley. Like it was unbelievable.
Like this
Unbelievable.
one little spot.
Patch.
yeah.
A patch.
A
Yeah,
patch
and
of
we
green.
ended up, we pulled into the first place. They said go to the neighbors, and we literally ran out of gas as we pulled into an abandoned gas station. And these 2 characters pop out and ended up giving us gas to keep us on our way.
Oh my, the most expensive gas you've ever bought in your life.
Yeah.
$50 for 3 gallons, but well
we
worth it.
chose to do so.
Right,
We
that was
chose
an
to do so,
offering,
yeah.
Yeah.
which is good karma. You
Yeah.
want to like plant those seeds. But I think it's interesting timing, because whether people are listening to this because they are also kind of gypsy traveling explorers like you guys, or if they're just dealing with the fallout of COVID, everybody's life is different. Everybody is like, nobody's life is exactly the same. I don't know anybody that is living the same life right now as they were before. It's altered in some way. And I think the spirit that you just said, like when things get real, when they fall apart,
Mm-hmm.
like let your senses be open for the energy that is going to be helpful and good. And inevitably, if that's your lens that you're searching for, that's what you find. And I think that is like, and that's just one of the many blessings that we're going to get. So
Yeah.
you've been making a documentary, you've been filming and doing this podcast. So we've got like a minute left. So is there anything you want to make sure that people know, like maybe like a word of wisdom from each of you about what you've learned, if you could transport it to everybody who's listening and or watching? What would you say? You first, Fred.
I'll go first because this is fresh on my mind, but having to do with that same energy, it's not always that easy. And for me, it's easy when it's other circumstances that come in, but we run into, and we've both acknowledged this, is when her and I butt heads, it's much harder because the ego gets involved,
right,
to disengage from and see that positive end. And every time it reflects in the worst timing, not being able to find a place to camp, not so great of people along the way, like all the circumstances. And even with us being aware,
yeah,
it's been a learning experience for both of us. And we've been learning how to turn that into, okay, we may be butting heads right now, but we need to get it together and get in this positive energy, and then it will come through.
Oh my God, that is, with Dana and I've like in certain critical moments, I know that love math equation is so true. 1 + 1 = 11, but 1 - 1 = 0. It's like we can either maximize the good vibes, or we
Yes.
diminish each other. And it's like we have that choice. And sometimes you need to diminish each other just so you understand how powerful we are to destroy. And then so that when we create with consciousness. Your last word of wisdom.
I think
Genevieve.
in the same line as Glenn was saying, when we butt heads,
Which is not often at
no,
all.
it's not
Yeah,
often at all.
but it's
it's
inevitable
always a
among humans.
learning. It's a
Two
great
strong
learning
people, it's gonna
experience.
happen.
Yeah.
So that in that same line, like I think not being afraid of pain, not being afraid of the storm is actually we will be afraid, and being afraid and is also accepting the being afraid and accepting the pain actually more often than not allows for things to settle in a nicer way or quicker way. I keep telling him I'm very hot-blooded. My culture, I come from different multiple background, and everything about me is hot-blooded. I grew up French. I lived in Israel, and it doesn't have to mean hot temper all the time, but it does mean that I respond to things in a pretty animated
Passionate
passionate way.
Right.
And Glenn is the opposite, which is perfect for me, because he has this way of tempering me down, and I changed dramatically. I haven't changed that much that fast since we started this journey, and he's been contributing to that in a way that is amazing. So what I kept trying to tell him though is please accept that it's going to be painful, and accept that I can storm, because this is me right now, and I'm doing the best I can to make it to be in a way that is, to come out in a way that is acceptable to you, but I also need to be accepted, you know, with this thing. So not being afraid of the storm. And every storm we had has been followed by days of blessings in everything he said, what we received on our way.
I love the saying, how do you survive the storm? Become the storm.
Right.
On that note,
Yeah.
the website is wakeinwave.com. So everyone check out wakeinwave.com. There's a podcast. It's a video series. Who knows, maybe a full-length documentary at some point. You can participate by helping them with their crowdfunding. It's a highly worthy cause. It'll help you to be involved in this journey. So thank you so much, Genevieve Begg and Glenn Taylor Sheckley. Thank you so much, and sweet dreams, everybody. Until we meet again, don't take your dreams lying down.
Thank you, Kelly.